This is Jordan for Boxing Social in association with Betfred, and I'm delighted to be joined by the one, the only, Mr. Chris Billam-Smith. Chris, how are you?
Yeah, very well, thanks, mate. Yourself?
I'm very well, thank you. Are you still in London following the weekend, or are you back in
Sorry, I'm halfway through making sure my phone doesn't move. Yes, mate. I went home Sunday, stayed up with mates on Saturday, and then went home Sunday, came back up Monday. So yeah, a lot of travelling, but all good.
A busy few days. Now, you were obviously in London for, it wasn't just the AJ fight, it was your campmate, your stablemate, Lawrence Okolie, defending his world title. We will get to him very shortly, but just to kick things off, AJ versus Usyk. How did you find it? What did you think?
Yeah, I thought, I think I scored it 8-4 or 9-3 to Usyk. But nothing, I think I said in a couple of interviews beforehand, like nothing would surprise me, especially that sort of performance from Usyk. A lot of people are saying that obviously Joshua should have jumped on him and just applied pressure. Yes, he should have applied maybe a bit more pressure, but if you're in there with someone who's just a phenomenal athlete and boxer, and the mental capacity of him is just ridiculous. And it just goes to show that boxing is very much a thinking man's sport, and like brains over brawn wins, because he's just so skillful, so elusive, always moving his head. But a great fight, like a really good fight. I really enjoyed it. A lot of people might not have, because it never like caught fire really. But just the level of boxing was so high. And AJ had a bit of success in a couple of rounds, but never really got a foothold in the fight. And I think that's down to Usyk's ability.
And do you think AJ could have done anything differently? He obviously decided to kind of box and move a little bit with Usyk, and maybe ended up kind of falling into Usyk's game plan. So do you think, if they've just confirmed the rematch, actually announced on Boxing Social today, do you think AJ can do anything differently to change the result in the second fight?
Yeah, I think so. But he had a bit of success with the right hand off of slipping at Usyk's jab. But I think he's got to work the body a lot more and try and slow him down a bit, because when Usyk was moving, he was just in control. He wasn't applying any pressure to get Usyk to sort of, double think. He just sort of gave him the room and just followed him around the ring, didn't cut the ring off. But yeah, I think definitely worked the body a lot more. Easier said than done against such a good fighter, but if they're in close, he's got to try and lean on him, use his size, all that sort of thing, all the sort of things you sort of saw from Klitschko over the years, and that sort of stuff. Like, you're not going to be able to just jab and grab, but yeah, there's plenty of things he could do. He'll know that. I'm sure he's a great boxer himself, but and he's obviously the consummate professional. So I'm sure he already, by taking the rematch and activating the rematch clause, he's already got ideas in his head. But yeah, he's got to change a few things, definitely. But at the same time, you can't just go in there and just go all guns blazing, because I think I don't think that's the right way. I don't think you can do that against such a skilled fighter, good footwork, good head movement. But he's definitely got to put his shots together a little bit more.
And do you think AJ can do anything to change the result, or do you think Usyk he's just too talented?
It's a tough one. He didn't really properly hurt Usyk at all. But he kind of stunned him a little bit at times, but not. But that's because he didn't follow anything up. Everything was, single shots. So if he laid a shot and thought about the second phase a little bit more, when he's sort of landing that right hand by slipping that jab, then stepping in with a 1-2 behind it and that sort of thing, or stepping in with like a jab hook to body, that sort of thing, then he's adding that second phase is going to be a massive benefit to him, I believe. There's plenty of things he can do. Whether it'll work or not, whether Usyk will have another trick up his sleeve, who knows? Because he's so talented, and he kind of found it easy in there the other night. He didn't really have to. I've seen him have harder fights, you know, at cruiserweight. He's had closer fights with Breedis, with Michael Hunter. And yeah, but obviously styles make fights, but it's I'll definitely be tuning in for the rematch, that's for sure.
And Chris, you're obviously a cruiserweight yourself, so just in terms of for our viewers listening, how you spar with heavyweights all the time. You've obviously got Dubois in your gym. How do you find, or like, how can you explain the difference of fighting at cruiserweight to going up and facing those big boys? I know you haven't done it professionally in the ring, but just from your own experiences with sparring, etc., how different is it?
Yeah, it's a lot different. I'm also not as good as Usyk though, so I think that's fair to say. But it's his skill that gets him out of situations, and that movement and the composure in the ring. And it's all about his mental capacity and his mental engagement at all times, and he's always keeping his opponents mentally engaged as well. So as soon as they switch off, saw it plenty of times the other night. Every time Joshua switched off, he'd launch an attack and usually catch him with that left hand, the straight left hand that snaps, you know, Joshua's head back a few times. It's a lot different though, being a cruiserweight to I'm not a massive cruiserweight, you know, I'm sort of probably an average cruiserweight at the top level. When you look at the guys at the top level and the size of them, there's a lot of lads that are smaller, and then you've got obviously the Lawrence Okolies of this world that are massive for the weight and athletes, like superb athletes. But yes, it's a lot different. It's a lot different for me. I find it a lot different. But like I said, I'm also not Alexander Usyk.
You just mentioned your stablemate Lawrence Okolie there. How would you assess Lawrence's performance defending his WBO world title?
This is going to sound ridiculous because he obviously stopped him in 3 rounds, but Lawrence was better than that. But that was because Prasovic was very, very awkward at times. That real strange, relaxed style. Didn't offer too much, but he was always sort of just looking for one big shot. And but yeah, Lawrence will, you know, he got the job done. And at world level, as a maiden defence of your world title, knocking your opponent out in 3 rounds, you take it. But he could have just been a bit cleaner, like not even necessarily done it quicker, but just been a little bit more clean with his work. But still, that just goes to show the level that Lawrence is at. He's stopping his mandatory in 3 rounds. And there's so much more to give, which is the exciting thing about Lawrence. He's such a great fighter, and I think we're still yet to see the very best of Lawrence.
Just out of curiosity, so post-fight, what will yourselves and Shane go through? Do you do a lot of post-fight analysis? You watch videotape on your performances and go through things, or how do you normally do it?
No, I mean, obviously Shane's got a lot of fighters, so he's obviously back straight in camp on Monday. With the rest of us in the gym, you know, get in late on Saturday night, get one proper good night's sleep on Sunday night, and then he's back into work. So we don't really sit down. But like as a fighter, I mean, I watch my fights back and starting to do a little bit more analysis on them now. But yeah, we don't. But then Shane still picks things up from the fight and says he'll always watch the fights back on his own, but we don't really sit down together. And he'll watch it back and say what did work and what went wrong, and he'll just tweak things. That's what Shane does all the time. He's always tweaking and looking to improve us, and that's the things, you know. Certain shots work and certain shots don't against certain opponents, and that's what Shane's so good at, you know, at taking people's strengths away from them, like opponents' strengths away from them, and then you know, us you know, minimizing our weaknesses and things like that. So it'll just be a few tweaks with Lawrence, and Shane will know that, and Lawrence will know that as well.
And speaking of making those tweaks and those changes, it's been a fantastic 12 months for yourself. Obviously, you're the British, the European, the Commonwealth cruiserweight champion. You've kind of gone on for like just an upward trajectory throughout lockdown, and when a lot of fighters have stood still, you've kind of made strides in your career. what is next for CBS?
I had a chat with the team last week and Eddie, and I'm hopefully going to. Well, I think I'll be out before the end of the year, hopefully in November. I'm pretty sure it's going to be just a random defence of the European, because I've been ordered to fight Fabio Turchi, but he doesn't want it this year. I think he wants it next year, or he's fighting this year already, or something like that. So got him. I'm not sure who yet as a defence, but obviously I'm in camp anyway. Hopefully in November, and then around February, March time next year, hopefully have a show back home in Bournemouth against Turchi. So that's my sort of next 6 months or so. So yeah, exciting times. But it's I'm just enjoying it, obviously, at the moment, and just trying to improve, because now it's all about getting good enough to fight for win a world title. So that's all I'm focused on. Is just keep improving every day in the gym and doing all I can to improve.
Now, you mentioned Turchi. How difficult is it for you as a fighter when you know you've got that fight potentially in February that you're working towards? You want the homecoming, you've been close to it before. How important is it for you to make sure you stay focused on your next fight and kind of not overlook that?
Yeah, it can be difficult, but I mean, that fight doesn't happen if this fight isn't successful. So yeah, you can only take it one fight at a time. It's good to have a plan, because then you can plan ahead. It's good to plan ahead and not just have one fight in and look at that. Plus, obviously, boxing fans always want to know what's next. As soon as you get out of the ring from one fight, it's always what's next. So yeah, it can be difficult. You know, in the past, I've had a few fights where I've sort of taken my foot off the gas and not boxed anywhere near my ability, because they're sort of nothing fights and they're late notice opponents. But yeah, it's just I'm really focusing now on my own sort of mental game more than anything else, and inside the ring, that sort of concentration and just improving myself in that capacity, really.
And not wanting to look too far ahead, especially after my previous question, but providing everything goes successful for the back end of this year and February or so next year, Vitality Stadium, is that the ultimate goal?
Yeah, that's always the ultimate goal. You know, that's the dream. I'll always call it Dean Court, but obviously at the moment the sponsors are Vitality. But yeah, that's the dream. I mean, I'm often at the ground, and when I every time I'm there, I think about that opportunity and that sort of visualize what it'd be like to have a ring on the pitch and the seats on the pitch and walk out of the tunnel and do my ring walk and things like that. And it's just every time it gives me goosebumps just even thinking about it. So that's the dream for me. And I'm aware that at the moment it's not doable for a number of reasons. You know, I'm probably not a big enough name at the moment, but yeah, it's just be the ultimate dream.
Now, just a final question on maybe a former dance partner and potentially a future dance partner. Richard Riakporhe returns to the ring this Saturday night on Sky as part of the New Look Sky and Boxer deal. How do you think he's going to do with his test, and do you see yourself facing him in the future?
Yeah, possibly. I'm surprised he went with Sky, to be honest. I thought the biggest fighters in the UK are with Matchroom. So at cruiserweight, you got myself and Lawrence, number one and number two. And I saw him, I think he called out Lawrence saying that's sort of what he's looking for. And that surprised me massively, especially being out the ring. But maybe he's just doing it. He's very good at publicising and sort of, doing all the publicity stuff and the stuff he needs to do to get his name out there, especially as he has been out of the ring for nearly 2 years now. So yeah, it's a strange thing to say, but yeah, I mean, it could happen. But like I said, he went and signed with Sky. I'm not saying that can't happen being on cross promotions, but if he really wanted to fight, I think he would have signed with Matchroom. And if he believed he could, beat me, he'd sign with Matchroom, have a fight, and then try and get the fight with me or whatever it might be. But he's obviously gone with Sky, and I don't know don't know the lad he's fighting this weekend, to be honest. But obviously it's not going to be a massively dangerous fight because he's been out the ring for so long. I think he's only had one fight since he boxed me. So it's he's got a lot of rebuilding to do and to get himself back relevant again.
Now, I said final question, but final question. Obviously, not this coming weekend, but next weekend, clash of two heavyweights completing their trilogy fight, Deontay Wilder versus Tyson Fury. What do you see happening?
I think Fury quite comfortably this time. I think the things we've seen is Wilder's added things to his game, but I don't think they're things that make him who he is. He's a massive puncher, and he looks like he's trying to box too much, and he's boxed for so long with one style. He needs to make sure he just adds to that style rather than try and change his style completely. And from some of the pad work I've seen, obviously it's only pad work, I haven't seen him spar or anything, but it's a lot of punches that are getting thrown. And as a heavyweight, you can't be doing that. Obviously you've got to throw more than he has done in previous fights, maybe. But like I said, it's better to add to your game than completely change your style. I'd say Fury wins that, providing he's on his game, because he's had some off days if he's not up for it in the past. But when he is up for it, he's unbeatable. So providing he's on it and he's up for it, then I think it'd be a comfortable night for Fury.
And just talking about Fury's had a few off days in his career. When he fought Otto Wallin, he faced some jeopardy that most fight fans weren't really expecting. And now Wallin's got the fight with Dillian White, and that's a pretty testing matchup. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I think it's a really good fight. I think Wallin, he's obviously a big heavyweight as well. And White hasn't boxed that many massive, cool sort of guys. So it's an interesting fight that I think Dillian's probably edges it, the punch power, but I think Wallin's busy. He's tough. He's a big bloke. And it's an interesting fight. One I can't really call, to be honest. I'll definitely sitting on the fence, and maybe nearer the time I'll watch a bit more of them both and be able to make a decisive decision. But it's a 50-50, that's for sure.
Well, Chris Billam-Smith, thank you for your time. It's a pleasure as always. Thank you for speaking to Boxing Social, and best of luck. I'm sure you'll be back on the channel soon, and best of luck in your next fight.
Cheers. Thanks, Jordan. Take care, mate.
Thanks very much.